The Cardiac Bucks do it again, thanks to incredible performances from Baker Mayfield and Emeka Egbuka. That and more on today's episode of Locked On Bucs.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome into this live post-game reaction episode of Locked On Bucs, your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank you for making Locked On Bucs your first listener view every day. Don't forget you can subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can follow along on Twitter. I am James Yarcho at JYarcho_Bucs, credentialed member of the media covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers, here with you 5 days a week along with the everydayers. And for that, I want to share my appreciation for your continued support of the show. One of the ways you can support the show is become a Locked On Bucs insider. You're going to get news, rumors, updates, general thoughts, one-on-one conversations with me via text message. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes to become an insider today. This episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like our players, we sweat every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights in this week's Moving the Game Forward Mazda Move and Be Moved. Biggest takeaways and game balls coming up in a little bit, starting here with the biggest moment, and this one was easy. It was another play that was late in the game because all the biggest moments come late in the game because the Bucs can't seem to find a way to not win outside of the last minute and give every Bucs fan a heart attack. But on a day when the defense was the worst that it has looked in I don't know how long, it was the defense that made the biggest play at the biggest time. After tying the game up 35-35, the Seahawks had just over a minute left with all three timeouts to put together a game-winning drive of their own. This was an offense that had scored touchdowns on 5 consecutive possessions, so the odds were in their favor to march down the field and get into field goal range for Jason Myers. On 2nd and 1 from their own 32, Antoine Himfield Jr. blitzed Sam Darnold and forced a pass that ricocheted off of Logan Hall's helmet and fell into the hands of Levante David, who was in desperate need of a redemption play. David had allowed 2 touchdowns earlier in the game to tight end A.J. Barner, but came up big in crunch time to get the Bucs' second takeaway of the game and give the offense the ball back at the Seattle 35. From there, it would have been a 53-yarder for Chase McLaughlin, but Rachaad White was able to get down to the 20-yard line and slide down in bounds. The big brain play from Rachaad, forcing Seattle to burn their final timeout. From there, Baker Mayfield took a knee, ran the clock all the way down to 3 seconds before Illinois legend Chase McLaughlin went out there and made a 39-yard field goal to win the game. For the 4th time this season, the Bucs overcame a deficit within the final 5 minutes of regulation to turn things around and come away with a win. This is what good teams do. I said it 2 weeks ago. And for most of Sunday, the Bucs did not look like a good team. The offense was outstanding. The defense was absolutely atrocious. Darnold finished 28 of 34 for 341 yards and 4 touchdowns. The Seahawks as a team rushed for 122 yards, breaking the Buccaneers' streak of rushing for 100 yards as a team and not allowing 100 yards. But when it mattered the most, they found a way to win. This was why I picked the Seahawks to win this game. Thankfully, I was wrong. I can come on here. I can eat my crow. I already had some insiders call me out about it, via text message. But this was my concern, was the Bucs missing Jamel Dean and Benjamin Morrison. I also really questioned the decision to not elevate Bryce Hall for this game. Seeing Kindle Vildor getting cooked by JSN was not my idea of a good time. This was definitely the worst game that we have seen from Jacob Parrish. McCollum was not good. The entire secondary was in disarray all game long, and it affected everything that they did defensively. They couldn't generate a pass rush because they had to make sure that there were 8 guys dropping back in coverage, but that allowed Darnold to sit there all day and pick them apart. It was ugly, but that's how important having reliable corners on the outside really is. Parrish just couldn't get it done. I don't want this to affect his psyche moving forward because he's been outstanding this season. It was just the result of a really bad circumstance for the Bucs on an injury front. You could also say the same about the Bucs run game. I'm not sure Bucky would have changed that much considering the day that Baker was having throwing the ball. 29 of 33 for 379 and 2. Absolutely outstanding stuff from Baker all game long. Rashad did find the end zone twice on running plays. He was able to eat away the clock at the end of regulation with a huge first down run and the big brain move to go down and bounce so that they could chew up the rest of the clock and not give the ball back to Seattle. So even though the yards weren't there, Rashad was incredible all game long. Then you have Emeka Egbuka. My goodness. What an unbelievable pick this was for the Bucs in the draft. He is now the first player in NFL history to have 25 or more receptions and at least 5 touchdowns in his first 5 NFL games. He now has the most receiving yards of any player in a single game this season after bringing in 7 receptions on 7 targets for 163 yards. We knew he was hyped to return home and play in front of his friends and family, but this was an absolute clinic. His route running was pristine. He made big-time catches in big-time moments, and on top of the touchdown, he also got the 2-point conversion to give the Bucs a 21-14 lead at that time. This kid is so good and so incredibly special. Back-to-back weeks now, over 100 yards, and he outperformed his Ohio State teammate, Jackson Smith-Njigba, 163 yards to 132. Both had a touchdown. JSN had a 53-yard catch. Egbuka was like, all right, I'll go ahead and get one for 57 yards. JSN may have had one more catch, but he had 2 more targets. Egbuka, a 100% catch rate. Just an absolutely incredible performance. But as I said at the top, this is what good teams do. They find a way when the chips are down, when their back's against the wall, they find a way to win. This was something that the Bucs got really good at doing during the Tom Brady era. And I'm sure a lot of you remember this in 2020, 2021. It didn't matter if the Bucs were trailing. You knew that when the fourth quarter rolled around, Brady was going to find a way to lead them to a win. That's what this team is doing right now. You didn't have Jamel Dean. You didn't have Benjamin Morrison. You didn't have Bucky Irving. You didn't have Mike Evans. You don't have Cody Mauch or Kalijah Kancey. You didn't have Luke Gedeke. You didn't have Christian Izien. And you found a way to win. This wasn't complimentary football from the sense of the offense and defense both getting the job done. This was complimentary football in the fact that there have been times this season where the offense wasn't getting it done and the defense says, don't worry, we got you. We're going to keep you in this. This was a game where the defense could not get a stop. And the offense said, don't worry, we're going to keep us in this game. We just need you to make one play. And Levante David did exactly that. Going to go ahead and jump into the chat real quick before we move on. Hefty Laces says, offense is succeeding in spite of Grizzard's play calling. I'm going to disagree with that. I might dive more into that on tomorrow's episode, but you have to remember, again, I just ran through the laundry list. Grizzard has yet to call a game with all 5 starting offensive linemen. He has yet to call a game where you have Mike and Emeka and Godwin all out there together. He has yet to call a game when Bucky is out there with Mike and Godwin and Egbuka. He's playing with he's not playing with a full deck. So what he's been able to do with the hands that he has been dealt along the offensive line with the injuries, in the receiving core, I think he's doing fine. So I'm not going to knock his play calling. There's only so much that they can do at this moment in time. But you've seen now the offense getting a little bit stronger. When Mike comes back, it's going to get even stronger. When Bucky is back, when Luke Gedeke returns, it's going to get even better. So I think Grizzard so far as a first-time play caller is doing just fine. There are some times, like I hated the trick play to Sterling Shepard where, Baker did like the behind the back, pitch or handoff or whatever it was. It was an ill-timed call, and it was not a great play design. But overall, I think Grizz has done just fine this year. Let's see. Alex says Baker went insane. Mech went stupid. Shep came through in the clutch 100%. At first, it was really hard. I don't know if it's because of the CBS broadcast versus the Fox broadcast, if it was the Sun or what it was. It was so hard to tell which players were out there. I thought the Shep touchdown was actually Chris Godwin at first. So I'm going to go ahead and blame CBS because I like Fox broadcast better than CBS. I like all of their announced teams better than CBS. So I'm just going to blame them for it because it was really hard to tell on a lot of those plays. All right, biggest takeaways. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home. Whether it's the local sports bar packed on game days, the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades, these are the places that bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives, and those local spots are what make the neighborhood feel like home. So many of them run on Square. Places like United Skates in Tampa, Hampton Chocolate Factory, Coco Sandwich Shop, and Hot Bins Tampa. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world, and you can go to square.com/go/lockedonnfl to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You're going to be happy that you did. Square, see you in the neighborhood. This episode is brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward for those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and keep moving the game forward. In his return home and facing his college teammate, Emeka Egbuka dominated once again, further placing him at the top of the list for NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year candidates. His 163 yards led all players in the Week 5 game between the Bucs and the Seahawks, and he notched his 5th touchdown of the year, putting him in 2nd place in the NFL in touchdowns scored this season. This also marked not just the most receiving yards by a rookie this season, but the most receiving yards in a game by anyone in 2025. It was quite the homecoming for the young man from Tacoma, Washington, who grew up dreaming of playing for the Seattle Mariners, but moved his focus to football as a 5-star recruit back in 2021. When you follow what moves you, the unexpected is only the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. Thank you again for making Locked On Bucs your first listen review every single day. Now, I usually start the biggest takeaways on the offensive side of the ball, but I think it's important to spend some time talking about the defense. I feel like there needs to be some damage control here because even though they were terrible for the vast majority of the game, I don't think it's indicative of who they actually are. Now, Levante had the play of the game, but I'm still concerned. I brought this up a couple weeks ago. I had people in the comments on TikTok coming after me saying that I suck at my job and I don't know what I'm talking about when I expressed my concern about Levante's play this year. He had more missed tackles in this game. He had a blown coverage in the end zone. It looks like Father Time has finally caught up to him and he just isn't the same player. But big-time players make big-time plays in big-time moments. And he made the biggest one of anyone. I think we just need to understand that he isn't the player that he's been in the past, and that's okay. We just can't hold him to the same standard that we always have, or the Levante standard that we're used to on the field anymore. As a whole, this game wasn't who the Bucs are defensively. Coming into this game, they were top 12 in just about every defensive category besides turnovers per drive and red zone efficiency. Now, red zone efficiency has been a problem for both sides of the ball, but they are top 5 in run defense. They had 2 of the top 12 corners in coverage grade on PFF heading into Sunday. They were top 10 in 3-and-out percentage, top 5 in first downs allowed on receptions. They were playing really, really well. The shuffling that they had to do in the secondary is what really caused them problems in this game. Kindle Vildor is great on special teams, not in coverage. And he was getting picked on relentlessly. As I mentioned earlier, Parrish had his worst game so far in his career. I know he's good, and I know he's better than what he put on film against Seattle, but he looked uncomfortable on the outside, and Cooper Kupp had a great game against him. Zion McCollum, he's having a rough year. He gave up some huge catches. He negated an Antoine interception in the second half with the penalty, and I know some of you were saying that it was ticky-tack, that it shouldn't have been a penalty. It was a penalty. You know, that's the only way I can describe it. I know he put his hands up, but that almost drew more attention to him, and that's why the flag was thrown. He has not played to the level that we all expected, especially after getting that big extension right before the season started. What I'm saying is, for as forgettable as this performance was, it's not who they are as a unit. Once Dean or Morrison come back and play the outside, and Parrish moves back to where he has excelled this year, things will return more towards the mean. They'll be able to bring more exotic blitzes and pressures. They'll be able to play a little more freely because they don't have to keep shuffling things around. It's really a lot like the O-line was early in the year. There was so much shuffling and moving around that it hindered what they were able to do offensively, and that showed. You saw a perfect example on Sunday as to how things on offense are starting to open up a little bit now that they've had the same offensive line back-to-back weeks, and they're going to be getting Luke Gedeke back sooner than later, and that's going to open things up even more. It's the exact same concept when you have all of these guys shuffling in and out of the secondary. So do not panic about the defense. Not yet. It was a piss-poor performance against Seattle, but I'm not taking it as a sign of things to come for the rest of the season. This is just what happens when you're missing 3 key guys in the secondary. It changes everything that you're able to do at all 3 levels of the defense. Offensively, the biggest takeaway is this. And man, this is going to make some of you really, really mad. We're seeing the shift. We are seeing the shift come to fruition. Of course, we're going to see Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan return, and that is going to change some things. But we're seeing the shift happening in real time. Emeka Egbuka is your wide receiver 1 of the future, but he's also your wide receiver 1 of the present. We all want Mike to come back as soon as possible. We're all rooting for Baker to make sure that he gets that 1,000 yards for the 11th straight year. But Egbuka is the best weapon on this team on the offensive side of the ball. He's unguardable. Unless you're getting away with defensive holding and pass interference like Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean did last week with the Eagles, I'm not sure that there's a corner in the NFL that can stop him one-on-one. Maybe Surtain. And that's because he is the best corner in the NFL. As a rookie, you're talking about a player with elite footwork, elite route running, and elite hands. I made the comparison for those of you that stuck with me over the offseason. Over the summer, I did my Emeka Egbuka film breakdown and review. And when I came on this show to do my reaction, I said his feet remind me of Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase levels of elite. That's how good they were, and it has translated through the first 5 games of his NFL career. He's already over 400 yards on the season. He's in the top 10 in yards. I didn't have time to calculate everybody that was ahead of him, but I can say firmly he's in the top 10 in yards after week 5. Puka may not get caught. Puka is on another level right now. JSN, he's locked in at number 2. He had a great game. But this was an offense that didn't have a ton of passing yards early in the season. Now that things are starting to open back up, you could be looking at Egbuka as somebody who passes the 1,000-yard mark by about week 11. As the season continues, he's going to command more and more attention from defenses. That's going to open things up for other guys. Mike is still going to command attention, but he might actually get more one-on-one chances because of how impressive, how explosive, and how reliable Egbuka is. He was drafted to be the wide receiver 1 when Mike Evans retires. It appears that it's happening sooner than that. Emeka Egbuka very well could be the Buccaneers wide receiver 1, even when Mike Evans is back on the field. Going to jump into the chat again real quick. Let's see. David says, with that being said, Mike and Chris will get more open looks now that the league is on notice of Mecca. 100%. Bat W tearaway t-shirts should be mandatory. Yeah. I mean, Bucky really took advantage of those last year, but I mean, the wide receivers may need to start wearing them because of how handsy some of these defensive backs have been over the course of the season. Danny, it's going to take Godwin, let's see, until at least after the bye week to be anything close to what he was before his injury. Yeah, he had a bad drop in this game that was very un-Godwin-like. But you got to continue to shake the rust off. He hadn't played football in almost a year. And I said the same thing to my son, who he had a rough game at hockey today. He's really frustrated by his ice time. And I realize I'm delving off into non-football talk, but I told him, I said, your situation is just like Chris Godwin's. You're not 100% yet. You're on this team with these kids that played all last season. They played in summer tournaments. They've been out there. You are just now starting to get your legs under you. You've been away from the game for almost an entire calendar year. You didn't get camp. You didn't get tournaments. It's going to take a little while for you to move up to where you're supposed to be, but you're playing with more confidence. You're getting stronger on your feet, and that's what it takes. You got to shake the rust off. It's the exact same thing with Chris Godwin. He's been gone for so long. He didn't have training camp. He didn't have the offseason. He was doing physical therapy in order to get back on the field. I don't think it'll take him quite until the bye, but it is going to take some time for him to start to look like Chris Godwin once again. All right, we are handing out game balls. That is coming up next on today's episode of Locked On Bucs. NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer right now. New customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you're going to get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel is where I always go to place all my parlays, my prop bets, my game bets for just about every sport. And you all know I have my group weekly parlay that adds so much more fun to our NFL Sundays. The Buccaneers are now 4-1 on the season, getting ready to host the 4-1 49ers at Raymond James Stadium next week, where the Bucs are early 2.5-point favorites with an over-under of 46.5. They are also now minus 590 to make the playoffs, minus 330 to win the NFC South, and sitting at plus 2,700 to win the Super Bowl behind the Denver Broncos, Washington Commanders, and Indianapolis Colts. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Wrapping things up here on a victory Monday live edition of Locked On Bucs, and it is time to pass out game balls. You guys start dropping yours in the chat. You all know how this works. The first one is the golden game ball to the player of the game, and it's going to Baker Mayfield. I know. You all expected me to say Emeka Egbuka, but I cannot overlook how good Baker was in this game. 29 of 33 for 379 and 2, plus another 15 yards on the ground, going toe-to-toe with Darnold in this one. This turned into a heavyweight bout. These guys were trading haymakers, and Baker's play was one of the biggest reasons the Bucs were able to get a win. The Bucs needed every single pass and every single play to result in positive yards and scores, and he came through. Another game-winning drive right after he put together a game-tying drive that went 70 yards in 2 minutes and 10 seconds. He just keeps finding a way to get it done. Game ball number 2, my top defensive player, Lavonte David. It's all because of the interception. He left a lot of plays out there on the field, but when the Bucs defense needed a stop, they had to have a play. He was there to get it done. A team-high 9 tackles plus a tackle for loss, but nothing that Lavonte did was bigger than that interception that he got to help set up the game-winning score. Game ball number 3, Emeka Egbuka. What else can I say about this dude? He's just special. Averaging 89 yards and a touchdown per game this season, well ahead of every other offensive rookie in every way imaginable. He's him. I mean, I don't know what else we can say about the guy. Eggs and bacon just keep getting it done for the Buccaneers offense. Game ball number 4, Illinois legend Chase McLaughlin. I know it's supposed to be for a defensive player, but the defense was terrible. I was thinking about giving it to Antoine because he had a pretty solid game. He had the pressure that forced the bad pass by Darnold that was intercepted by Lavonte. But for the second time in 3 weeks, McLaughlin comes through with a game-winning field goal. He has now made 11 of his last 12, and that one miss was the one that was blocked. He's 4 for 4 from 50-plus over the last 3 games, including a 65-yarder, which set the NFL record for the longest field goal in history outdoors. He's been absolutely nails. He deserves his flowers after the way that his season started. So by God, I'm giving Chase McLaughlin a game ball in this one. Going to jump into the chat and see who you guys are giving game balls to. Let's go to where do we go? Liam, Egbuka, Baker, Lavonte, and Chaz. Chaz? Are we talking Rashad or are we talking Chase? I'm assuming you mean Chase and just missed the E. Let's see. Akib, as the resident former Browns fan, I keep having to eat crow about how great Baker is. Yeah, I get that a lot from Browns fans in the area. David says, can Logan Hall get the assist for a helmet pass to Lavonte David? I'll give him a secondary assist, kind of like in hockey. It's not the full assist, but I'll give him the secondary assist because the true assist came from Antoine Winfield. That was perfect timing on a great call by Bowles. Perfect timing on the blitz. Got to him just in time. Forced a little bit of a bad pass because he tried to step up into the pocket to avoid him and short-armed it, and that's why it ended up ricocheting off of Hall's helmet. Reginald says that Emeka gets the golden game ball. I can't disagree with you. I mean, I chose Baker, but it's just as easy to make the case for Emeka. Paul, the OG Baker bro. Baker, Emeka, Chase, and Grizz. Let's see, who else? Let's see. King Cook says O-line needs a game ball. The O-line was fantastic. Only gave up 1 sack in this one. Didn't open up quite as many rushing lanes as we were hoping for, but Seattle's got an incredible run defense. I wasn't overly surprised that the Bucs didn't gain a lot on the ground. Remember, I talked on our preview episode about how they needed to utilize the running backs more in the passing game than in the run game. You needed to kind of run through the air in this one. But yeah, the offensive line did a great job. Charlie Heck is getting better each and every week, which is exactly what you want to see. You still want Luke Gedeke to come back because he is much better than Heck, but Heck has been improving each and every week, and that is a great sign. Mike says Otten had a nice game. Absolutely. It was great to see him get more involved in the passing game. You know, he's been kind of relegated to having to block quite a bit this year because of the O-line woes, but it was a homecoming for him too. It was a Vita Vea homecoming. It was a Cade Otten homecoming. Too bad Jalen McMillan couldn't suit up. It was one for him as well. But it was great seeing him get more involved in the passing game. Had some clutch catches there early on. Let's see. Destined for greatness. Shout out to 7th round gem Tez Johnson for stepping up and having a solid game. Yeah, absolutely. Tez Johnson was a lot of fun to watch in this one. I even mentioned on Twitter on one of his receptions, he slipped and fell at the perfect time because you had two Seahawks end up colliding. I know Pritchett was one of them. I can't remember who the other was, but they ended up colliding. That would have been a nasty shot on Tez. But yeah, Tez really getting involved was fantastic. Tipset 1992 says Rachaad White. Absolutely. Great game from Rachaad. Again, not a ton on the ground in terms of yards. He got the 2 touchdowns. He had the heads up play there at the end when he picked up the first down on 3rd and 7, but slid down inbounds to make sure that Seattle burned that timeout and they weren't going to get the ball back. And then some great blitz pickups to help protect Baker Mayfield. So yeah, an absolutely fantastic game out of Rachaad White. Was it? David says it was Emenwari and Pritchard. I didn't think it was Emenwari on that play, but it very well could have been. Benjamin says OC Grizzard for calling an outstanding game. I did think he called a pretty solid game and really was able to open up the playbook for the passing game for the first time this season, at least to that level. Just an absolutely fantastic performance from the offense all around. But guys, we are way over on time. I want to thank you all for jumping in on this live show in the live chat. You guys have been absolutely fantastic. We'll be back tomorrow. I will talk about the special teams on tomorrow's episode. I wanted to keep this one happy. The Bucs win again. Let's have some fun. Let's talk about the great things that they did. Let's talk about Emeka Egbuka being, top 10 receiver in the NFL so far in 2025. Top 5 receiver in the NFL in 2025. I don't know. Definitely something to keep an eye on. But you guys need to make sure that you're keeping an eye on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at @JYarcho_Bucs, Instagram and TikTok at Locked On Bucs at both of those spots. Make sure you are following on YouTube with the notifications turned on, as well as wherever you get your podcasts. Become a Locked On Bucs insider. Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnBucs or click the link in the show notes. If you want to support the show, but you don't want to be an insider, it's real easy. Like this episode on YouTube. Leave a 5-star review wherever you get podcasts. It does help other Buccaneers fans find the show. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding Victory Monday. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire the cannons. I want to thank you so much for joining me right here on Locked On Bucs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.